Hello, everyone. I thought I would do a ranking of all the books that I've published. Now, they're not all the books that I've ever written. I've published 7 books, and I think I have a few ebooks of short stories that are available. But seven, not all of them are full-length novels, but 7 novels slash novellas. And now I've actually written a total of 13 books. I wrote 2 books in middle school and 4 books in high school, but those aren't publishable. Well, one of them, The Landlord, the one that I wrote my senior year, I did publish for a time, but I had some problems with it, so I took it down. It was only ever available as an ebook, and but these are the 7 books that I've published, and you may actually be surprised. Now, of course, lists can change. My opinion or may be different next year. I may have a different ranking, and so you never really know. Sometimes there are situations where it's rare that this happens. I wish it happened more often. Where a reader may point out something to me about a book, where I'm like, that they may give me a new perspective on a book, and I think, that's actually better than I thought, or something. So my opinions on my books can change. But coming in at number 7 is Dark Tales of Mystery and Crime, my short story collection. I'll read you the summary here. It goes, the blurb. Get ready for stories of mystery and suspense. You will find a man who refuses to reconcile with God, a woman who will do anything to become famous, not to mention many other exciting tales. Be prepared for anything because you never know what will be around the corner. Now, this was a short story collection that I wrote nearly 10 years ago now, 39 short stories. I've actually written over 200 short stories. Now, I will say that my writing style here is very minimalistic. It's almost pulpy in nature. I mean, there are some exceptions, but the reason why this is number 7 is that it doesn't really reflect how I write now, for the most part. This is the only book, though, to be available in my local library, mainly because my dad posted where the book was published on Facebook, and the librarian saw it, and all of that. None of my other books are actually in the library, even though my first cousin, actually is going to be, I don't know if she is yet, is going to, I think, become the head librarian, and so I might have an easier time getting my books in there. But at the same time, she and I aren't very close, and aren't when it aren't we're not like really close friends or anything. But I'm not really close to any of my cousins, even though I am probably closer to her than most of my other cousins. But and I don't like asking people who I know to like do favors for me, because it seems like I'm like it's I'm engaging in nepotism, which I really don't like. Um, but anyway, though, this is the only one that's available in the local library. But again, it's a lot of the short stories, though, are, again, they don't really reflect how I write now, and so which is why it's ranked at number 7. It's also the only book that I've written that isn't available in an ebook form. It's just available as a paperback. Then the next book is The Rains of Godwin Valley, which this is the only book that I've sold the least amount of copies of this book, mainly because it is not available in it is not linked with my other books, because I published this under Joseph Loxton, not Joseph Vance Loxton. So if you want a copy of this book, you're going to have to search for it. And it's the only one copy that isn't. It's the only book of mine that isn't linked under Joseph Vance Loxton. But I'll read you this summary. In the middle of the Old West, a small town is struggling to find water. 18 years earlier, one of the villagers, a man by the name of James, impregnated Joanna, a local prostitute. When the town discovered the truth, they kicked her out of the county. Many years later, Joanna returns, determined to get revenge. With the local sheriff secretly helping her, Joanna plans to destroy the morality of the town, namely by taking the one thing they need to survive: water. Again, this was a Western book, even though I originally wrote it as a Great Depression book, but then I had to reset it in the Old West. And but again, this is The Rains of Godwin Valley is really the first book that I wrote where I felt like I was really coming into my own as a writer. That it was a vast improvement of the short stories I had been writing before. However, I will say that I had a bad time with this when I tried to get when I tried to get The Reigns of Godwin Valley reviewed on by asking people on Reddit, I was flooded with a series of like negative reviews from people who hadn't even read the book. And so, if you see several bad reviews on The Reigns of Godwin Valley, um, Reddit is where that came from. And so, but yeah, I feel like I was really coming into my own with The Reigns of Godwin Valley. Um, and then, of course, at number 5 is Symphony of Perdition, which I'll read to you the book that this summary. Told through a series of flashbacks, Symphony of Perdition explores the emotional journey of Sam, a poor and down-to-earth farmer who attempts to save his wife from her depression. Along the way, he will have to confront her intrusive father, someone who will stop at nothing to end the suffering of his daughter. Now, the thing with Symphony of Perdition is I like Symphony of Perdition. I actually wrote it while I was while my new house was being built out here, and so I often would write it some out here, write it some in my old house, and it's a psychological thriller essentially. And I will say that the one area where I am a little disappointed with it is that I wish some of the dialogue had been written a bit better. I was trying to go through I was trying to go for a naturalistic feel, but now I do like some of the dialogue, particularly between the psychiatrist's father. He has some good monologues and speeches, but I like Symphony of Perdition. It's just there are other books that I've written that I like more. There are some serious flaws, I would say, in my short story collection and also The Reigns of Godwin Valley, but these next 5, I think, are mostly solid books, other than I could nitpick a little about them. Okay, then coming in at number 4 is Mournful Wanderer, which is a book, which is again a gothic ghost story, and I'll read to you that summary. Set during the Civil War, Mournful Wanderer explores the emotional trials of Alice Bloomington, a grieving widow and mother who attempts to contact the spirit of her dead son. In attempting to do so, she will seek out the assistance of her family doctor, a man with questionable motivations. Now, Mournful Wanderer is essentially a ghost story. I was inspired by The Turn of the Screw, which by Henry James. It's a very psychological ghost story where you're not really sure if the ghost is real or not. And actually, the chapters are actually the longest of any book that I've written. I mean, this isn't the longest book that I've written, but the chapters are actually quite long. There's only about 6 chapters, but they're about sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 words apiece. And there's not a lot of dialogue in Mournful Wanderer. It's essentially there's really only 2 characters, Alice and the doctor, and if you count the ghost as a third character, even though he doesn't speak other than whispering. But yes, this is Mournful Wanderer is an exploration in psychology and the psychological aspect of what's real, what's not real, and such. Coming in at number 3 is Empty Sounds of the Wind, which Empty Sounds of the Wind is my shortest book, only about being 40 pages or so, and my cheapest book. But it has a lot of emotional depth to it, and I feel like it packs a lot into a short period of time, and I find that people have really resonated with Empty Sounds of the Wind, because it's basically, I'll read to you the summary of this. After fighting in the Second World War, Edmund O'Neill returns home, desperate to reconcile with his father, a man of 80, who has become an invalid. In the process, he will discover a dreadful secret, one that will tear his sanity apart. And so, yes, you have Empty Sounds of the Wind, which is essentially a family drama. A man returning from World War II, he meets his fiancée, who he thinks has a strange relationship with his father, and you could read this in about an hour, but it packs an emotional punch, which is why I would rank it at number 3, even ahead of some of my longer books. Then, of course, at number 2 is The Ecstasy and the Ignominy. Some of you might be surprised that I didn't rank it as number 1. Now, I love The Ecstasy and the Ignominy. It is my big, epic, almost Dickensian novel, and I'll read you the summary of it. Set in the 19th century, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy explores the agonies and tribulations of the people of Harrisville, an industrial town on the brink of revolution. Catherine Harris, the wife of a wealthy industrialist, is tempted by the sympathy of Edward Compton, a man disillusioned by life. Their forbidden passion unfolds against the backdrop of a tumultuous insurrection, testing loyalties and breaking alliances. And again, so I think that what I really love about The Ecstasy and the Ignominy is that I put really all of my knowledge of literature and all of my past experience into this book to create a grand, tragic epic on the scale of A Tale of Two Cities and Anna Karenina. But why isn't it number one? Well, I think because it is such a long book, there are going to be certain elements, certain subplots that are a bit messy, that could have been more coherent. Because this was really my first attempt at doing a big, grand, epic novel, and because of that, I struggled somewhat with coherence, with making everything harmonized, which I think I did for the most part. But when you have a book as long as The Ecstasy and the Ignominy, there are going to be certain flaws, certain things that I could have done better. And so, even though it is almost my favorite book, it is not quite my favorite book. Even though I would say that it was a massive undertaking and a tremendous accomplishment that I was able to write The Ecstasy and the Ignominy after 2.5 years, and it is in some ways my signature novel. It is the novel that I would like to be remembered for in that sense, but it's not quite my favorite. Coming in at number one is Silent Reckoning. Now, which is kind of a Great Gatsby-ish kind of novel, and so I will read to you the summary of it. In the end, we are merely the clay that time uses to sculpt its wonders, Jeannie said. Set in 1929, Silent Reckoning explores the trials and tribulations of Jeannie Anderson, an aging actress who desires to reinvigorate her dwindling career. Obsessed and beguiled by Jeannie's elegance, Walter Peterson, a lonely factory worker, seeks to assist the thespian in her lofty aspirations. They will be plunged into a world of corruption and vice, through which they will become privy to the ghosts of disillusioned dreams. Now, the reason why Silent Reckoning is my favorite is because I feel that the book is almost perfect in its coherence. That yes, I use a lot a lot of poetic some of the best poetic language that I've ever written. That is certainly within Silent Reckoning. It is written almost to perfection in that regard. But it's not just the language. It's not the only reason why it's my favorite. It's my favorite because Silent Reckoning was a massive step up from my previous work, Mournful Wanderer, and that's because I had really delved into classic literature in a way that I never had before. I had read it before, and I think that I bared a lot of fruit for that reason while writing Silent Reckoning, and because it is a tightly woven narrative, I think that it is almost perfect in terms of its narrative cohesion. In terms of its cohesion, I think Silent Reckoning is perfect. So yes, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy has a lot of beauty. There's a lot of beauty in the language, but the beauty in Silent Reckoning coheres in a way that is almost perfect. It is cohesive. The beauty is cohesive, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and because of that, I think that it is almost flawless as a book because it is a very personal story with only a handful of characters, and I think I was able to interweave the plots and storylines in such a way that it created a harmonious whole, and that is why I think that Silent Reckoning is my favorite book. Best, I don't know. I mean, I guess I would consider it my best, but that's why I would rank Silent Reckoning over The Ecstasy and the Ignominy because it's shorter. I was able to make the storylines cohere in a way that I don't think I was able to do as well in The Ecstasy and the Ignominy. And so that is why Silent Reckoning, I would rank Silent Reckoning as number one. Of course, though, however, in in the future, I could perhaps rank The Ecstasy and the Ignominy as number one. Who knows? Um, but I kind of go back and forth in terms of how I feel about it. And so, th- this is my order for this year. I mean, this is how I would rank them right now. Next year, I could rank them in a very different order. And so I hope you enjoyed this journey of exploring the books that I've written over the course of this decade.